It gives me pleasure to introduce Melanie Gobert and Helene Demirci. Melanie Gobert is president of TESOL Arabia and the co-chair of next year's TESOL Arabia conference. She was the recipient of an Emirates Foundation grant in 2009 for studying the effects of reading Emirati literature on national identity. Dr. Gobert is currently on the faculty at Abu Dhabi Men's College. Her particular area of interest is the use of extensive reading with students to improve their overall proficiency. Helene Demirci, sorry, I'm trying to get that right, is also at Abu Dhabi Men's College, where she has been involved in the implementation of an extensive reading program. Together with Melanie, she is a co-chair of the Middle East North Africa Extensive Reading Foundation. She is the conference co-chair for the Third World Congress in Extensive Reading, which will be held in Dubai in September 2015. Currently, she is a doctoral candidate at the University of Liverpool. Please join me in welcoming Melanie Gobert and Helene Demirci. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that very nice introduction. It's nice to hear all that nice stuff about yourself just before you speak, because you're usually the one that writes it. Okay, let's get started because I think we have a lot to get through today. This is the order of our talk. Okay, so just a moment for home literacy practices. There has been quite a bit of research here showing that UAE students do not have many books at home. Most of the students have fewer than 25 books. Now, there was an original study by Jazer in 1991 comparing, it was an ethnographic study done at UAE University, and it was comparing the top scorers in an English and Arabic test and the bottom scorers, if you like. And he went into their homes and counted the books. The lowest scorer had 8 books at home. Okay, that was 1991. You can say that's a long time ago. That means that it was his school books, right? But recently, you know, Dubai invited the TIMS, the Trends in Math and Science. What does it sound? Trends in Math and Science study from Boston College. They were invited in 2007 by Dubai to participate in this international benchmarking study. And they know from that study that there is a correlation between test scores of the students and how many books they have in the home. That's part of the parameters they report on. And most of the students in Dubai who participated in the study had fewer than 25 books in the home. Okay? Have you ever asked your class of students how many books do you have at home before you started reading with them or when you're teaching reading? Anybody? Well, you should definitely ask the next time you teach a class, because you might have 1 or 2 students say, oh, I don't know, I have a lot of books. So that's, you know, like if you have 20, that's 5%, right? If one student says, oh, I read a lot and I have lots of books. Okay, in a study done in 2007 at Abu Dhabi Women's College, I was looking at the impact of phonics instruction on their reading, okay? And as a side question, I had to eliminate how much reading they might be doing outside of college. So the students were all asked, there was about 102 students in the study, they were asked how much time they spent reading in English and how much time they spent reading in Arabic outside of college, and 41% said 0. And just before we started our pilot, Helen gave a small survey to her level 2 students, and she asked them if they took books from the library, and 47% said no. I think you've all witnessed this, right? It might be better at Zayed University. After all, I think it's probably the first or second choice for students to study at Zayed or UAUE, yeah? So you might have better students. What's your experience? Do your students read a lot? Do they read in Arabic? Literature, newspapers? Mostly they're reading, you know, messages, text messages, right, and Instagram messages. I think we were all experiencing that in general. Guys may be worse than girls. But one thing we know for sure, right, is that the benchmark for our students to enter tertiary university has been the IELTS for the past few years, and here are some interesting statistics for you to look at. So I think most of the consumers of the test, certainly the academic module in the UAE, are students who study at one of the three government tertiary institutions, right? And the scores are not improving, they're going down. Which kind of means to me that more practice reading of IELTS tests, more practice reading of IELTS type tests is not really like the key. Because we've been doing that for a long time, right? Time for some reading practice, let's do a practice IELTS reading test. And the students want that, don't they? That's their idea of studying. And it's not very difficult for the teacher to photocopy a test and have the students do it in pairs or alone or whatever and check the answers, right? But it's not really helping their... We're not really seeing a great improvement in their IELTS reading scores. Okay, now what happened in October 2011, I think Helen joined our college, and she got the idea because she knew of a tracking system that she used in Turkey at the school that she taught out there. And I was like, you know, a lone fish swimming against the current because I was reading with my students. And we usually did class sets of graded readers, and I was very interested in, you know, getting more and better books for the students to read in the college library. So the librarian actually put us together, okay? And we decided to pilot this reading program with two groups of students. One was level 3 and one was level 2. And somewhere in there, when we were planning this and organizing it, Helen looked at me with a glint in her eye and she said, "Why don't we make it a competition?" And the reason why, she saw that students were not reading extensively, and teachers would say, we don't read extensively with the students because we don't have time, we have so much grammar, we have so much vocabulary, we have so much curriculum to cover, there's no time. So we started our competition, and they read books and passed the quiz. Okay, they got points for passing the quizzes, and we recognized the top readers at an awards ceremony. And I think it's time for me to hand over to you, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is.
Thanks, Melanie. Now I'll go on to explain more about the study and show you lots of numbers and statistics from the data, show you the data that we collected. This was one of our students. When we took them to the library, he's got his photocopy with him, his reading test practice. Is it a familiar sight to you? Do you see your students in the library like this? Yes? Who just nod off? Yes? No?
Do we see it in the library?
So we've taken him to the library. Behind him is the reading oasis. You'll see some more photographs of that later. So this was our question. Would a reading competition motivate our male Emirati students, remember we're teaching males, to read more independently? At this stage, we still had this idea of independent reading, but it went on to, you know, would they just read more as well? We wanted to find that out. So this is the pre-pilot study with just the two classes, my class and Millie's class. During the pilot, this is what we observed. This was the area behind where that student was sitting. There he is at the bottom, and this is just behind. After a couple of weeks, it was 8 weeks, our pilot was 8 weeks, so after 2 or 3 weeks, we observed them sitting in groups, actually reading. You might think that's fake, but it isn't. And the student there on his own, can you notice anything about him that's quite interesting? He's wearing his sunglasses. And his phone's still nearby, as you can see there. And I asked him, I said, are you actually reading that, Khalid? And he said, yes, miss, yes. And I asked him a couple of questions, and yeah, he was actually reading. I don't know. That's during the study. That was quite encouraging. At the end, this was the awards ceremony. We had the trophy. The publishing company gave us that. But you can see that they're all sitting around, eagerly awaiting the results of the top reader and the winning class. The supervisor attended. This was very important. They showed their support towards the end. people were noticing that students were in the library and they were reading. Yeah, again, students were in the library, also they were reading. So these were our observations at the end of the pilot study. These are just from the librarians and myself and Melanie. We noticed that students were going to the library to get books on their own independently, so they could read them and get points for the group and for themselves. They were motivated by the competition. They checked their points regularly in the system. They knew how many points each book was worth, so they knew the value of the books, and they were searching for books with higher numbers of words, rather than us telling them, this is the book you should read, or this is the text you should read. They used a tracking system within the system to check their points regularly, especially after they just read a book. And in this particular system, when they passed a quiz, a virtual certificate came onto the screen, and they were showing each other and calling the teacher over, come, look at this. And they were very proud of them. That's it for that one. So that was the pilot study. It was just for 2 classes. After this study, and after the supervisors had seen how motivated the students were, and after the librarians saw how many students were in the library, it was decided to invite teachers to join and ask for volunteers, rather than say, okay, we're all using this program now. There was still quite a bit of resistance, and there were some teachers who were pro-reading, or pro-extensive reading, should I say. So in February 2013, there was one semester between the pilot and the start of this, because we had to get books ready and set up the systems and get the students onto the tracking system. Yes, I explained why. Teachers started to see the benefits after the pilot, and again the library circulation figures were improving. This was very, very important for the library. The graded readers were actually being used. In this trial, like I said, it was a trial the second time round, we continued with the same model, except we had a weekly leaderboard. You see under what? There was a weekly leaderboard, and the library or the Independent Learning Centre collected all the statistics for each week, for each class, and for which students had read the most that week. And we used the MReader program to track their points. Does anybody know about MReader? Yes. Yes? Do you use it?
Yes.
Yes? Do you use it independently, just in the classrooms, or have you got it in the level?
Independent.
You just all use it?
Is the expert.
You're going to talk about it as well, aren't you? Yeah. Anyway, so that's what we used. There were 8 teachers and 3 levels. And I think now, here we have a student using the MReader system. We allowed them to have their books in front of them because it's not a test. And there he is in the library with his friends. That's MReader. When they finish reading the book and they pass the quiz, it shows the book covers on their page, if you want to. But that's very motivating for the students. That's a little bit like the virtual certificates they were getting before in the other system. That's what MReader is. I won't go into it in too much detail because someone else might be doing that. But the main thing for us, that it was free, because the original system we had to pay for, and it was iPad compatible, because the Scholastic system wouldn't work on the iPad. And in the middle of all this, the college introduced the iPads. It's also good because of the reports, which helped us to create these leaderboards. And this is one of our leaderboards from February 2013, which was the start of the trial. And Melanie's going to talk about this because she gets more excited about it than me.
Yeah, I get very excited about this because, you know, whenever you're making any kind of change or introducing something new, teacher resistance is something that has to be factored into it. Because we're very individual, yeah? We're very much individualist. Okay, so these teachers were not forced, okay? Some of them later said they were forced. But if my supervisor asked me if I would like to participate in a project of the reading challenge, I feel that it's within my right to say, no, I don't want to do that, and it's nothing personal from the supervisor. Apparently, other people felt that just being asked if they would be interested to participate meant that they have to, okay? But other teachers, you know, were more happy to be invited, yeah? Now, this is what excites me. Do you see? This is like week 3, okay? We have when we start the new semester, you know, there's some settling down of the classes over the first 2 weeks. But we schedule an appointment with the librarian who actually gives a PowerPoint and orients the student to the competition, okay? I mean, we couldn't do it without the support of the library, honestly, because it is a lot of work to prepare the leaderboard and, you know, they even sort our books into different levels according to the MReader levels and make a special display area so the students feel that they're part of something. And the librarian, each teacher is asked to bring the students to the to bring the students to the library for that orientation. And then within 2 weeks, when it settles down, we start the competition. Now this is week 3. So you see this? TBA, 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 TBA. So that means, of course, to be announced. So we're in week 3 of the competition, and those teachers haven't started reading with their students, or taking their students to the library to choose a book, is what I should say, because we don't read with the students. We take them to the library to choose books. Okay, and the next slide. Very exciting. Now, how did that happen? The students started asking their teachers, why aren't we going to the library? Because the other classes were doing it and getting excited. And they showed the leaderboard on the plasma screens in the library, and they sent it to the teachers to show to the class, and the supervisors as well. So you see what happened. I think it's amazing. So the power of the leaderboard cannot be underestimated. I think back to Helen, yeah? Oh, this is the award ceremony at the big trial, the trial with 8 classes, 8 teachers and 10 classes. So you can just see, I mean, check this out. Look how small the trophy is. So this is an older student, but I mean, have you ever seen Emirati students so happy about getting an award for something academic? They were really, really pleased. And we invited at that time some senior management to hand out the awards, so they saw it too. And I mean, it's so joyful to see that. Because at our college, the students only get recognized for when they do sports competitions against other colleges for football or basketball. I think I'm handing it back over to you. I think I was going to talk about the data collection. Okay, so we collected data at the end of the trial with the 10 classes and the 8 teachers. We did an online survey. We had 83 students responding out of 179, so a little less than 50%. Most of them were 17 to 20 years old. And we were using it in all the levels, but most of the respondents were from level 2 and used MReader. Okay, we also collected data from student focus groups and teacher interviews. So we triangulated the data, and it was really nice. I think I interviewed 8 classes, all the classes except mine and Helen's. And I think we also, between us, interviewed almost all of the teachers. Yeah, almost all of the teachers. Now I think it's back to you.
Okay, we used Wakefield and Guthrie's L1, Language 1, Reading Motivational Framework, as our conceptual framework for the study. In his framework, he has 3 dimensions for reading motivation, but we just focused on, initially, we're focusing on the achievement, values, and goals. Okay. Achievement, values, and goals has 2 aspects, intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So we were looking at the extent to which students could be intrinsically motivated to read. One of the reasons for this was because many people said, oh, doing quizzes, that's just extrinsic motivation. They're not going to continue reading. They're not acquiring a love of reading. They're just doing it because they want to pass the test and get the points. But we discovered there's more to it than that. Those are the other two aspects, the other two dimensions of the framework, with the individual aspects of those dimensions. But I'm not going to go into too many details at the moment. So these are our survey questions mapped to the framework. You can see that the ones under intrinsic motivation, we asked the students using a Likert scale, I love reading, strongly disagree, etc. I will continue to read books on my own. I like reading more now than I did before. Those, we thought, were our questions that matched intrinsic motivational dimensions. Extrinsic motivation, we had those two questions there that were mapped to competition in reading. One question for the recognition for reading, and two for reading for grades. Okay? Just explaining that. So here we have question 1 from our student survey, or the results of question 1 from our student survey. Just a minute here. The reading challenge encouraged me to read more. You can see here that most of the students, what's the number? 87% of students agreed with that. It was verified by the focus groups with the students and the teacher interviews. And we discovered that the leading motivating factor was the competition. This was still with extrinsic motivation with this question. Another, question 10, winning the reading challenge motivated me to read more. You can see that 81% of students agreed with that. This is a student question. So winning the competition is very important for them. Then moved on to questions related to intrinsic motivation. And from the student survey, I love reading. 83% of them indicated that they love reading after participating in the reading challenge. Again, question 6, I will continue to read books on my own. 72% of students claim that they would. Intrinsic motivation, I like reading now more than I did before. 83% state that they like reading more than they did before. Perhaps because they didn't read before. We suggested earlier that they weren't reading, so they discovered something about reading. Okay. So people did ask us, and they were still going on about this extrinsic motivation is bad, and we shouldn't give them quizzes, that's not going to encourage them to read. But I stumbled across this quote, and I think it puts it all together. It certainly does for me. Using extrinsic rewards is often thought to be detrimental to intrinsic motivation. But under certain conditions, external rewards may be needed to ignite the spark or introduce the task where they have no initial interest and when the task may seem difficult. I think these 2 points, no initial interest and when the task may seem difficult. When they see a book, a book here like this, they think it's very, very difficult because it's not a text on one sheet of paper. Some of our students believe that they don't have the abilities to read the books. So I like that quote a lot. One of our colleagues, Zayed Johnson, also did a study for her master's degree about reading, and she had this quote, we need to do something to kickstart the program. We need something to kickstart this interest in reading. So our competition seems to do that extrinsically, but we have evidence from the students that extrinsic motivation does lead to intrinsic motivation. At the end of the course, or after the trial, in preparation for the progress test where they had to write a past tense narrative, I asked them to reflect on their experiences in the competition, in the reading challenge, and this is what they said. At first, the challenge was hard for me. I didn't think I would be able to do it. Then, when I focused, it got easier for me every time. I felt that I wanted to explore and read. I became happy when I got to the end of each book, so I could answer the questions on the website. When I passed the test, I wanted to read more and more. Okay, passed the test, extrinsic motivation. In the end, the reading challenge helped me a lot because my vocabulary got better. These are his own words. he realised that his vocabulary got better, and he found new words that I never heard before. And now I use them normally. We think this is intrinsic motivation. It's coming from within. One more. Every Wednesday and Thursday we went to the library with our teacher. Then we took some books and read them. So we improved in reading. After that we took the quiz because we need a high score. Perhaps some books we couldn't read easily, but with different types of practice we have more information now. We can read faster. They're aware that they improve themselves, and this is better than before. In my opinion, we should continue the reading, even helping ourselves. So in their opinion now, they believe they should carry on reading independently. Okay, and now Melanie will continue talking about the other dimensions that we discovered after we'd realised that the motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, was actually being enhanced. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so to sum up what Helen has said so far, we found that the students were motivated by the competition, first of all, and that then they began to realize that it was having an impact on their language acquisition. And many of them said, I will continue to read on my own, and now I love reading. We've actually been carrying this out as a foundation-wide program now for 3 semesters. So we actually have students who've been reading a lot. And I think I saw Tom Robb present, the creator of MReader, present in Qatar, TESOL, and he said that students need 1,000 plus hours of I+1, to get to that intermediate plateau. And that all the teaching hours we give them does not add up to 1,000. And now we have a lot of pressure, don't we? Do away with foundations, and even in a year of foundations, I don't think the students have 1,000 hours of instruction. I think it might be something like 600, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, one of the questions was also, and I think it wasn't question 10, question 11, was, what do you think the reading challenge helped you improve? Now, this survey was given in Arabic and English, yeah? So we didn't want to have them being confused. And the top answer was vocabulary, okay? And the second answer was spelling. Now, you can see from Helen's students' reflections, this is level 2, they were quite simply worded, right? There wasn't any sophisticated vocabulary in them, but the spelling was very accurate. So I wondered, did you change all of that spelling when you copied and pasted that onto the slide? And she said, I don't remember, but yesterday we actually looked at the students' writing. And no, yeah, she copied and pasted. There were hardly any spelling mistakes. And her whole class's reflections, benefited was misspelled, a couple of other words. However, we don't have any real proof of that because they were typing on their iPads, so if they got the vowel right, maybe they got the whole word right, yeah? They also, reading comprehension, reading speed, grammar, writing. In the interviews with the students, I polled the students, and these were reflected in the interviews as well as the survey. I just think the spelling one is so interesting because the research that has been done in the United States shows that students who read more spell better. And a lot of people think it's the weekly or every 2-week spelling test we get, but most of the students who read a lot at home already have mastered 70 or 80% of the spelling words. So then they can achieve maybe 1 or 2 higher. But the kids who don't have a rich literacy environment at home maybe have only mastered 3 or 4 of the spelling words, and with the memorization and the drilling, whatever the teacher does, maybe they only improve also 1 or 2 words. So there's a lot of research done in English showing that we learn how to spell by reading, because we have like a photographic picture of the word. If my student asks me, how do you spell tomorrow? I don't sound it out. I picture the word in my mind, right? So it's like our mind is taking pictures when we read of how to spell. I agree with that theory. It's not my theory. Yeah? Now, I think I mentioned that just a little bit. Yeah? So we saw that they were both extrinsically and intrinsically motivated to read. teachers saw the benefits. After we did it with the 8 classes, the teachers and the students started asking the supervisors if they could be part of the competition also. They said, why aren't we part of this? We want to be in this. And the library was very happy because that's one of their KPIs. Okay, so I think we have summed up all of that. Now we are, September 2013, all of the classes had to read, 32 classes. In February of this year, we tried to make an inter-college competition between ADMC, ADWC, and Fujairah was also joining us. Now, Fujairah did not have the amount of library support that we have in the Abu Dhabi colleges, so they dropped out of the 3-campus competition because it was a teacher trying to, calculate, or, you can print all this information off, but then you have to build the leaderboard and everything together. So, Helen and I realized how much the library supported us, how much they're doing to keep it going. So I think it's really important for it to be like a 3-pronged effort, teachers, librarians, and administrators, all have to be working towards it together. And we know also, we gave a presentation a year ago at the Petroleum Institute, and they have been running a competition for a year now, and I believe they have also made the international leaderboard for the higher levels. 47 classes completing, and we also have a blog. The library made a blog to share the leaderboard, I think it's on the next slide. Oh, the award ceremony this year. Okay, so again, the certificates, they downsized the certificates at the library, which I think was a mistake, A5 instead of A4. Here the students are holding up the trophies. Here he's smiling. And we have even discovered this year that we have even entered the social media realm of the students. These are Instagram messages, His medal is here on his car. He has done, this is him holding up his medal. Now, we didn't have this, do we have any Arabic speakers in the room? Any bilingual teachers? Now, we did present this recently at the University of Sharjah, and Helen said, should we check the Arabic before we present it? And I said, there'll be Arabic speakers in the audience. And apparently this says, I'm the handsomest baron in the college, or something like that. But still, they're sharing it on their social media, and here as well. Look at that. This is a student also. And they're sharing it between colleges. So I think that's very exciting when you have something you do at the college that actually penetrates into their Instagram, Twitter world, This is the blog. So even though, most of our students are actually reading books, most of the students say they prefer to read books, we also have Oxford Bookworms database, so they can read on their iPad, and some students do, because that's very important at our institution. And I think there's also a new reading program coming out from a man in Japan called X-Learning or X-Reading, and it will be an app or a website that actually has books from many different publishers for a very, very low cost, like $3 per student per license. So that's something to look into. Here's MReader. Level 5. So there's an international leaderboard. That's from our college. We think it's Stephen's students. Let's skip that. Challenges. Okay, this was made during the pilot. And this is when they had that exhibit open of the Louvre works that will be on Saadiyat Island. And our supervisor remarked on that. We need to address the student's desire to share answers. Often what happens sometimes if a student doesn't have any points, he feels really bad, so he'll ask his friend to just help him do some of the quizzes. You're not going to win 100% of the students, but if you can win 75 or 80%, I think it's enough. Because maybe 10 to 12% of our students can have some sort of reading disability, right? Okay, teacher resistance, especially in level 4, which is the one where they're preparing the students to do the IELTS at the end of the semester, okay? But we now have some students who read in level 1, 2, and 3, or 2, 3, and the students are still reading in level 4 by themselves, okay? But teacher support is really important, yeah? And motivation. Will the competition continue to motivate students who have already participated? Well, yes. Yes. We have 3 semesters. And thank you very much. Any questions?
Can I just ask a question about sharing the answers? I think that's a major problem that we have. How have you dealt with that, students sharing answers?
There are 2 things that's going to happen, okay, when you use MReader. A lot of the books in the graded readers are based on movies, okay? So some of the students will take the test when what they really saw was the movie. You can't really prevent that. You'll take away everything out of it if you get too harsh, and I'm removing these books because they were based on movies and you didn't really read them. They can get to a certain level on that strategy, but they won't be one of the top readers or winners. The quiz is also on MReader. There's like 30 questions, and they are randomized, and the students are not shown the correct answers. The 10th question is put the events of the story in order, okay? And MReader prefers for you to have a 60% pass rate, but the teacher can reset it. Because some of our students we saw really read the book, and then they'd go to take their first test and they'd fail, okay? So we would help them. You can also see, like at the women's college, one of the teachers witnessed that she had a female student who was very competitive, and she took like 125 tests, okay, and she got some points, but then you could see that her failure rate was very high also for the test. So I think this is something that the teachers also had to go through. Because my first reaction was, let's take away all of the books that are based on movies. And I think you just have to keep going back to, that's not the goal. The goal is to encourage the students to read, okay? And for some of them, when they start reading, the penny drops, as Helen says, and they get it, that their English is improving, and that they will become better readers. So I don't think you should get bogged down in those things from our experience. But you won't win 100% of the students or teachers.
Apart from just the competition that motivated them to read, did they receive any kind of assessed grade for their reading level, or how much they had read, or how many books they'd read, or their score? Anyway, was it included in their final assessment?
No.
I've got 2 questions. What is the nature of the questions that they're asked? Are they just simple comprehension questions about the order of events and characters, or do they go a little bit deeper? Do they ask sort of students to try and understand the writer's attitude or a character's attitude?
I think they're really basic questions to see if the student read the book or not, but your colleague Wendy is going to present on the MReader site, so if you have specific questions about that, she will show you what it looks like and how it works.
The other question I have is there's a lot of discussion in our program at the moment about making our program more EAP, yeah? And the fact that students predominantly need to just tackle academic texts. Now, extensive reading is another very different area. I personally believe in extensive reading and reading for pleasure, etc., etc. But I can see how there might be arguments about the fact that what we should be doing is focusing students much more on challenging academic texts as opposed to increasing their love of reading.
You're asking the right person about this, because I just have a book chapter coming out on something I presented at the American University of Kuwait, and one of my rationalizations for this is comparing how native English speakers who are successful readers learn how to read to how second language learners are taught to read. Now, actually, to become a successful reader, you know. Usually, you know, you're read to by a loving caregiver. The home is rich in literacy. You start reading fiction. You can see yourself in the literature. You know, at least if in my country, if you're a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, they begin to change that now to make more inclusive children's literature, right? I'm sure they're doing it in all countries. And you read fiction until you're like 9, 10, 11. It's like in secondary school or junior school when you start reading text for information, but you read biographies and fiction, right? It's fiction, and I'm not the one who says that. Robert Hill says we start reading in fiction. David Hill, I think, from a UK university, who's an expert in the field. So what we do with our students who actually have a terrible reading experience and background, no literacy in the home, and Arabic is taught to read very strictly with the teacher asking them tricky questions to catch them out. They're not encouraged to read extensively for pleasure at all. So we take students coming from that background, and then we use, you know, traditional ESL methodology, which is very close to traditional L1 Arabic teaching reading methodology. So in my view, our students don't have the time to develop that social aspect of reading where they read for pleasure, so they don't have anything to apply to EAP reading and reading in a second language. So I think it's very important for you to develop that for your students in foundations. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having like a year one, you know, academic reading and writing course, or last semester or upper levels to make the change, but our students have a very negative experience with reading, and just giving them more EAP reading where they have to read short things and answer questions or skim and scan and all that stuff is not going to do it.
Your question actually is the whole reason why we started it, why I had the idea. Because towards it, I don't spend a lot of time there in the classroom doing this. The students go off and do it themselves, and that's what we're trying to get them to do, because you know, there's
But
lots
you need
of
to support it with the class community to say
Yes,
Yeah.
Really might address some of these questions, right?
Yeah, and we missed one slide, I think, from the teacher interviews and the focus groups. The top answer for how my teacher encouraged me to read was gloss vocabulary. The teachers took pictures of the students reading and put it on Instagram. The students said that they thought the teachers should take them to the library twice a week for an hour and a half to read. That's how much they wanted to read. So we do ask at the beginning, while you scaffold them into this, that you take them to the library for 5 or 6 weeks or the whole semester. And you should model reading, and also you should ask them, what are you reading, college? Do you like it? So you can see our library is very busy, just like a K-12 library, with teachers encouraging extensive reading. We're trying to kind of duplicate that motivation, those aspects of it. Okay, I think maybe one more question, and then... No more questions? Wendy, you ready to talk about MReader? Okay.
Do you need some help setting up?
No.
Okay, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Wendy Payton. I'm one of the ABP instructors here, and I've taken on board MReader as a result of attending a presentation that Melanie made at TESOL Arabia EdTech SIG in Abu Dhabi last September. I had a quick look at MReader because I've been a passionate believer in the value of reading for language acquisition. And it's something that I work very hard with my own child and stepchildren over the years. And coming from New Zealand, we've got a very strong background in reading and reading recovery. And I felt that exposure to reading could potentially have a significant difference to our learners here in the UAE. So we started off with my class and my co-teacher's class, 2 classes, but very quickly I was approached by some colleagues, and we added in another 2 female classes at level 20 and another one at level 10. We did make involvement with the program and its accessible activity, and we made sure that not only did the classes or the students read a particular number of books, but also a certain number of words in order to reach a minimum level. Today we currently have 20 classes involved in MReader, because at the end of our program at level 20 and level 10, we made this available, having checked that we had sufficient graded readers in the library, to other teachers that were interested in also doing the program. So we currently have 20 classes, 15 female, 5 male, for a total of 293 students, and covering all levels in ABP. This is the experience with my class. These are the boys engaged, reading, enjoying what they are doing, and wanting to go to the library every week. For my class, I scheduled 2 library hours a week, and on the basis of the assessment program, I knew that would average out to approximately 1.25, 1.5 hours a week, allowing for other activities that might take precedence from week to week. So what is this student doing? Is he actually using his mobile phone to check his Instagram, to check his Facebook, to check his emails? No, the phone is actually being used for a dictionary to assist him with his reading. The one thing that we did notice in the library is that very, very few students went off task after the first 2 weeks. And like Melanie and her colleagues, we do allow the students to have the books present while they're doing the assessment. But one thing that we have done with the classes here is to try and encourage the students to sit the assessment in, or the quiz for each book, in the library using the PCs rather than using the iPad. The reason for that is, one, we can supervise more accurately. We can see if somebody is standing next to them actually feeding them some of the answers. So it's very easy to move on anybody that might be trying to assist the student. Secondly, we had found some students have some extra big hands when it comes to actually selecting the multiple choice answer that they want to give on the iPad. So one of the reasons or excuses that I gave to them to encourage them to use the PC was that they had access to the mouse. But reality is they can sit any quiz 24/7. Within our structured environment and our MReader assessment, MReader administration settings, we have said that once they sit a quiz, if they do not pass it, they cannot resit it until the teacher permits them to do so, and that must be at least 24 hours later, so that the student has to go back, they have to readdress the book. So our assessment that we put into place required a minimum number of books and a minimum number of words to achieve 70%. We also recommended for each level what graded reader level that they started at, to ensure that this was actually scaffolded. So, how did the students select the books? This is what we generally found. Let's take the easy way. We'll find the shortest possible book and keep Miss happy and be able to say we've read one book. No, that didn't quite work. That was a bit hard. So let's read the same book as my mate. Then we can share answers. Whoops, MReader quiz randomizes the questions. So what my friend had, I might not have. And guess what, boys and girls? We can also run, as a teacher, a report to show who does the same quiz at the same time, and therefore you can probe it just a little bit further to see who read what. Then it seemed to go to a third stage. not enough words. So the boys in my class started choosing longer books. They started making choices based on the number of words to make sure that they reached that minimum of 70% that we wanted them to pass. But, oh dear, we tried to read it very quickly. We didn't spend enough time, and they weren't passing. So this was the ideal opportunity to then have further discussions with them and get them choosing books based on what they were interested in. So the final progression, the final weeks of the program that we had in place, we saw the students actually selecting books to read that they were interested in. And as a result, they were generally passing the quizzes on the first attempt. The preferred genres, when I actually went back and analysed them across all classes, were thrillers, adventures, classics, and romance for the girls came in at fourth. It wasn't their first choice. Now this might have been somewhat influenced by the books that were available in the library, but this was across all levels and across all classes. And the last choice was actually movies. Now, I actually find that movies, or selecting books on movies, was a great motivator for getting the students interested in a book. And it allowed them also the opportunity to perhaps go back, see the movie, listen to the CD, and then read together with that support. And again, it was a method of encouraging them to continue on to another book. We also went with motivations and rewards. We had a class leaderboard, and this was extremely important, the class leaderboard, in terms of motivating. I started off with only putting the student numbers up, and then the number of books they'd read and their word count. The boys very quickly told me no, they wanted to know who did what. They had a class vote, so the actual names went up onto that leaderboard. Those that hadn't read any books or had very low word counts did not want to be embarrassed. Peer pressure went on them to actually do a little bit more work, and those that were extremely motivated by winning just kept reading and reading and reading because they wanted to be at the top. We've also worked closely with our librarians here, and the Emirati library assistants have put in place 2 wonderful leaderboards in the male and female LECs. They take the data each week for me. I've set up a dummy class for them in MReader, and they're able to take the data and display that. Now, MReader has got a great facility. If somebody does not want their name to be displayed for public knowledge, they can choose to hide their name. Their teacher can see it in the class list, but it's hidden from any public area. So we've followed that same policy in terms of these leaderboards. So the girls that are happy to share their name will appear in the male and female LEC leaderboards. For those that don't wish to have their name known, it'll just show as name hidden. The international leaderboard has also proved to be very motivating, and we have had Zayed University students already on this board on a regular basis. This was extremely exciting to see it when it first happened. So informal feedback. We have dealt with the classes in terms of the reading assessments. I looked at the reading assessment 1, reading assessment 2, and overall for level 20 there was a 17% improvement between those 2 assessments. Now, we didn't do any testing of the reading levels using any other scales before this. We know that there was a general improvement across the board between these 2 assessments, but we do believe that the increase for those that had been doing MReader was greater than the other students that had not participated in that the program. So we think that this is very promising for future studies in terms of the impact it has on the formal assessments. When we introduced it, I wanted to make it as easy as possible for the teachers, so we put into place a templated reading assessment document, the leaderboard, and the grade spreadsheet that will automatically calculate the grade for the teachers to facilitate the acceptance of the program. For the students, we did up an instruction on how to do the first quiz. This was referred to probably on the first or second occasion only, but it was provided there as a level of support. So going forward, I am hopeful that a recommendation made to the Curriculum Committee will see that this will be extended across all classes in ABP. That decision, I believe, is still to be made, but I really would support that. For the library have undertaken that all graded readers will be identified with some sort of identification to show that they are available as an MReader quiz. They will also be secondarily identified by MReader level, and then they will be reshelved by genre, so that students that are interested in biographies can go to the shelves that have got the biographies. They can then select within those shelves an MReader book or a graded reader book that is available in MReader that is a level 2 book or a level 8 book, whatever they are actually reading for their appropriate level. That should be in place by the time you return at the start of the next academic year. So any questions in terms of Zayed University and what we've found here? Yes, Andrew.
Yeah. In the library we have, I think, just Oxford bookworms. Are all of those titles available on MReader, or are some not?
We have in the library approximately 4,000 graded readers that are available in MReader on the male side, and just over 5,000 graded readers on the female LEC side. It's across a variety of different publishers. The identification on each graded reader will make it much easier when students go to the library in the future to select those books. Now, those are actual numbers of books as opposed to number of titles, but I've been working with the library for the last couple of weeks, and we have been moving stock from the male into the female to increase titles and vice versa on each side. Yes, John?
Is there plans, or are there plans to buy more titles? Is that going ahead?
Yes, I have put in a big order last week where we believe that they will be here in approximately 4 to 6 weeks, and they will be on the shelves prior to the start of the next academic year.
How many more?
There is another 173 titles and approximately 1,200 more books.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we wind up, thanks so much, Wendy. For our visitors, we have a gift to give you, which appropriately for the topic is a book. Anyone care to guess what the book might be? An ABP book? It's a story Bible. This is reinterpreted by our students with the guidance of Brianna, and Brianna is here. Yes. So thank you very much, Melanie, and thank you very much for that. Thank you. Oh, you get a